Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. In this presentation, I'm going to go over some guidelines for prioritizing feedback on graduate student writing. And the guidelines here apply to both course papers and dissertation chapter submissions. So some background about me. I served as an online writing center director, and I was kind of the single director at a writing center that served 1,200 doctoral and master's level students. So in this role, I had access to all faculty and chair feedback because quite often I helped students interpret the feedback they were getting from faculty to revise their papers. So I worked not only with students, but also with faculty to help them think about various ways to use digital technologies to enhance their feedback to students. So some issues that I identified when I was in this role was lack of consistency in quality and depth of feedback between faculty. And I'm not saying this as a blaming thing. I know everybody has different style and approach, but I just saw some faculty who were just giving very minimal comments and saying something like, you know, you didn't do that well this time, but I'm giving you a good grade, try better next time. Obviously, this isn't a best practice. But then there were also faculty who really went all out and provided feedback on everything, including line editing the student paper, which usually is not necessary or recommended. So there was this wide range in approaches to feedback. And then, of course, some faculty didn't use any additional digital technologies like screencasts or canned comment libraries to provide feedback. And then other faculties did use various videos, but again, there's a way and a best approach to using screencasts when you decide to use them, if you decided. So I will go over that as well, some guidelines related to that. So some faculty perceptions. So some questions to consider is, you know, are content mastery within a course or discipline and academic writing two separate domains? So obviously I don't think they are, because a lot of times we hear the phrase that, you know, writing is thinking, and if writing is thinking, then it's part of joining the academic discourse community. So that means that, yes, sometimes it might seem like grammar, punctuation, like lower order things might seem kind of like a strictly writing issue, but generally when you look at the ideas of a paper, the way they're developed and supported, which are also writing issues, but they're also content issues and part of joining an academic discourse community. So, you know, one of my, I guess, beliefs in this presentation is that they cannot be separated, not always. And that's why it's important to help faculty provide feedback on writing, which will also help the students' entrance into the discipline. And then, of course, the last bullet point is that feedback is part of students' writing to learn. And again, entrance into their discipline. So this is what you can call a job aid or infographic that I developed to kind of help faculty think about the various categories of a paper and think about which one to focus on. Okay, so let's say if a faculty gets a paper that's completely confusing and they kind of don't know where to start, this is meant to help them guide their feedback. So they can start, there's different ways to start. If the paper is really confusing, I would suggest that first looking why it's confusing. So going to the section on organization. Usually if a student's grammar is okay, but the paper is hard to read, a lot of times it's because the student is unable to develop paragraphs around a single main idea. So if you look at a paragraph, say, you know, look at it, and you can use the questions under organization. Do paragraphs begin with the main idea? Do main ideas support the thesis? You know, if the answer to these is no, then you can provide some resources. So Walden has great resources on the meal plan and on paragraph development. You can share these resources with the student and say, you know, your paper is hard to understand. So, you know, I had a hard time evaluating the content because the ideas were hard to understand because of paragraph organization. So please revise your paper, trying to organize your paragraphs around a main idea and then resubmit. So in this example, you wouldn't then start commenting on style, APA formatting, or even too much on content, because first you would get the student to fix their paragraphs so that you can understand their ideas. Sometimes, you know, best strategy is to pick one or two higher order concerns. So let's say if in addition to their paragraphs, you notice that if you look under task fulfillment, it's one of the questions is, you know, or some of the questions are they following directions and are they addressing all parts of the task? So for example, if you notice that the student isn't addressing all parts of the question, the assignment prompt, or if it's a dissertation chapter, maybe a specific section of the chapter is missing, then you can say, then you can focus on two things and say, okay, revise your paper to have paragraphs organized around a single idea, plus you're also missing XYZ sections. Please make sure you incorporate those sections as well as part of task fulfillment. So this way, and then you would provide very minimal or almost no feedback on lower order concerns. I mean, you can provide 1 or 2, I would say 10 to 15% comments if you notice lower order concerns. But again, the majority of your energy can focus on higher order concerns. And then let's say the student gives the paper back to you. Now you can check all 3 higher order concerns, because ideally, hopefully task fulfillment or organization are done. Now you can focus on content, make sure you know, they're developing their ideas fully. And again, if they're not, you can again give the paper back. So this is just a way to kind of prioritize the feedback instead of commenting on everything, which can a lot of times overwhelm and confuse the student. Speaking about, you know, writing center resources that student can use. So once you have most of the higher order concerns addressed with the student through your personal feedback, then you can also encourage them to work with the writing center tutor to address lower order concerns. And the reason I say that is that the writing center is usually not going to, like, especially for dissertation chapters, focus too much on content, because that's the domain of the chair. So again, higher order concerns, you know what you want as far as task fulfillment, you can work with the student, and then lower order concerns, the student can continue to work with the writing center as well. Okay, so let me show you also just a summary of the guidelines. So when you get a confusing paper, you can start from sentences and paragraphs and see what's causing the confusion. If needed, you can share resources on the meal plan, well-done resources on the meal plan, main idea evidence analysis link with the student, and let them master that. Just mastering paragraphs can be a very difficult thing for a novice writer. So it's like almost like you're helping them take it a step at a time. First, figure out your paragraphs, right? Because if a student can't write strong paragraphs, they're not going to be able to write a strong, big paper. So you're taking it a step at a time, prioritizing it. Step 1, let the student master paragraph development. And at this stage, you can also say, go to the writing center and have them also give you feedback on paragraph development. So it's not like the writing center can't help them with this, they can, but it's almost like you're also kind of aware, almost like you and the writing center then will be working kind of together. If you tell the student you need to work on your paragraphs, and I'm sure the writing center is likely to say the same thing. Then you can look at the task fulfillment, see if the student is addressing all parts of the task. And then if it's a dissertation, you know what the student's research questions are, you know what they should include in, for example, a literature review. So it's really important that you provide your opinion on task fulfillment. Of course, and then sources, critical reading. Are they using peer-reviewed journals? Are they analyzing and synthesizing the journals sufficiently enough to develop their ideas? And then once those higher order things are concerned, then you can focus on lower order concerns. And in this slide, the following slide, I want to share some digital tools that can help you save time. So it can seem overwhelming and time consuming to provide students with feedback, but it doesn't have to be, because you can use various technologies. So one technology I really like for lower order concerns especially is what's called a clipboard manager. I use the one that's called Copied for Mac, but if you can just Google clipboard manager and you'll see a lot of tools out there. What this does is it helps you develop a library of comments that you can then quickly incorporate into the student paper. And when you create these comments, you can include hyperlinks to various resources like YouTube videos or the Walden Library that has a lot of lessons on, let's say, commas or semicolons or APA formatting. So what this does is help you improve the quality of your feedback, because it is a best practice to include mini lessons. So instead of just saying, comma wrong or just correcting the comma, that's not a best practice, because you're not explaining to the student why it's wrong and how to fix it. So best practice when providing feedback is to say why an issue is an issue and then how the student can fix it. And the way to do that is with these hyperlinks that explain all that. So that saves you time, but also at the same time ensures quality of your feedback at that level, lower order level. For higher order concerns, I find it actually, it saves time to provide video feedback. So Kaltura, available through Walden, or Screencast-O-Matic, which is a free resource. It has some options for pro accounts, but what you can make with Screencast-O-Matic, you can make a video of up to 15 minutes long, but usually you don't need 15 minutes. I would say try to stay between 5 and 10 minutes. But of course, for a dissertation chapter, you might have to go over 10. But what it does is it helps you orally go over certain sections of a paper, and you can use this to expand on your in-text commentary. So what I find a lot of times is it's easier to explain things orally, especially complex things like a student not developing a theme sufficiently enough, or maybe the research questions are not really research questions and you want to explain that. So these kinds of complex things can be easier explained orally through screencasts because you save time, you communicate more information in less time. If you wrote all that information out, it would take too much space and time because 5 minutes of video is like 765 words. So basically also research supports this because it adds to the clarity of feedback. And students like it. It also can be a motivator for the student because through your tone, your language, you can communicate how, a friendly tone, and the student can have a more positive attitude towards the feedback you're getting, because a lot of students, if you just put written feedback, the tone, it's hard to see the tone, so students can sometimes interpret that negatively. But if they hear your voice, even if you're providing constructive criticism, it can be a chance to make the relationship, kind of develop a relationship with the student. So here, I just want to quickly show you an example of a student paper and how you can use the canned comment option. So for example, here, so the way you start with higher order concerns is you would look at the topic sentences. So here we see the topic sentence: stress is a growing problem around the world. Okay, so let's say, I think that this is kind of too, this is a little bit too vague, like around the world for a literature review. So I can go here to my copied app and I can just say meal plan. And here you can see I have the canned comment Walden meal plan explanation. So here I could make my personal comment and say, this topic's sentence is too vague. Consider rephrasing. And then, and I can elaborate more, but then I would also just include, I can say here, see, and then with the hyperlink, which has much more detail. Okay, so you can see I'm giving the students some personalized feedback on a higher order concern, but I'm also giving them the tools to learn more. As you're going through and you see lower order things, I'm not saying, if you're focusing on higher order, I'm not saying never comment on lower order. I'm just saying limit your lower order comments to, 10 to 15% of the paper. So, let's say if you see a mistake somewhere here, and you want to make a comment about in-text citations. So here I have a guidebook I like to use with students. And then if you see the same mistake somewhere else again, you can just highlight it. So what I'm suggesting is that you don't have to kind of comment on every single time you see an error. So for example, here, if I've commented on this already somewhere, I can just highlight it. And then when I make a comment, I just say, fix all. And then the expectation would be that the student would fix all similar comments. You can even have a canned comment that says fix all similar issues. Paper. So here you can, you can basically have a library of canned comments ready, and then just personalize them based on the needs of that specific student. And I think that can save you a lot of time. So the Walden Writing Center also has, so my presentation was not based on the Walden Writing Center. It's based on my personal experience working outside of Walden, but Walden has its own great faculty resources that I suggest you explore. And they also have various tutorials and job aids on how to use various technologies to use the library function when commenting. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and this is my email.